Well, the situation is indeed murky. We won't know until tomorrow morning at the earliest who's really winning or who has won. Both sides are trying to spin it. But the macro picture is very, very clear. This coup is Turkey's last chance to avoid becoming an authoritarian Islamic regime, if not an outright Islamist dictatorship. And we should make no mistake, the people staging this coup are the good guys. It sounds paradoxical, but they're the ones on the side of constitutional democracy. President Erdogan has been dismantling the secular constitution, the secular legacy of Ataturk, packing the courts, packing the legislature, packing the upper ranks of the military, all with Islamists. He is not our friend. He is not Turkey's friend. And if this coup fails, you will see a crackdown, and it'll be the excuse to eliminate the last vestiges of secularism.
The Turkish military claiming to overthrow Erdogan, leader of Turkey. You can hear F-16 fighter jets overhead. I want to bring in now Mike Baker, a former CIA covert operations officer and president of the global security firm Diligence. Mike, another Muslim government toppled, another economy about to crash, and another sense that we're on the edge of the war.
Yes, I would probably be less inclined to talk about the market crashing. I think what we're going to see is a fair amount of stability, frankly. Look, at the end of the day, I think people will realize that a large percentage of the population there in Turkey is actually supportive of this move. The longer that Erdogan spent time fashioning himself into an authoritarian, appeasing the Islamists, and kind of creating this self-inflicted wound where he was trying to dance with the devil for a period of time and adjust elements of the Constitution.
CNN Chief International Correspondent Christiane Amanpour, who joins us right now on the phone. Christiane, what can you tell us? You've certainly spent a lot of time in this part of the world.
Well, indeed, and just to the point of a potential coup in Turkey, you know, this is obviously not the first time. I mean, Turkish modern history is replete with military coups. And one of the things that President Erdogan did was try, when he came into power in the early 2000s as prime minister, to get the military out of politics and to get them back into their barracks. And that didn't sit well with a lot of the military. And of course, it hasn't sat well with the military and indeed many members of the secular Turkish society, as Erdogan is perceived to have become much more Islamist and much more authoritarian. And this has been a trend in Prime Minister and now President Erdogan's rules, particularly after he's been elected several times, elected and re-elected, and as he tries to, concentrate more and more power in his hands and in now the presidential office, that has become something that many people, not just in Turkey, but around the world, particularly in the West and his allies, have grown to sort of be very suspicious of. And you were talking about the precedent. There is a precedent because what we saw happen in Egypt after the Arab Spring, Mohamed Morsi was elected. Eventually, the military decided that they just didn't want any more of this, that it was being too Islamist. They thought it was destabilizing. They hate the idea or calling it a coup, and they get very internationally, diplomatically irate when you call it a coup, but they took over from the Muslim Brotherhood, the elected government of Egypt, and they put Morsi in jail, and that's where he remains.
For me, it is staggering. It is astonishing to see how Western media covered a coup d'etat that was a direct attempt, a direct hit against democracy in this country. One of the ways that is used by this media was to immediately shift the focus instead of highlighting the gross attempt to democracy, the violations against the people in the streets, the people that were killed, the people that were injured, the use of tanks, the use of heavy weaponry, the use of F-16 in order to bomb innocent civilians in the street. The Western media didn't bother covering all that. They went immediately and turned the case upside down. Western media was more concerned about the reaction of the people in the street. Some of them were labeled jihadist, while this was like a unique case of people fighting for their rights, people trying to stop a direct attempt to unsettle a democratically elected government in Turkey, which is not only unique but should be celebrated. It doesn't happen a lot. It happened only a few times in history, but Western media weren't concerned about that. What they were concerned about was to put allegations of human rights abuses against the people, against the soldiers who were killing people, which shows the whole masquerade, and which shows also the total bias and total ignorance and total disregard for journalistic standards.